growing season. I'm going to focus on the disease identification and talk a little bit about the management strategies. Um, okay, so um, let's start with the core concept in plant pathology, the disease triangle or disease pyramid. Um, so uh, you probably will see diseases in your field, but only very few of them will really cause economic loss. And really, in order to cause economic loss, you really have to have the pathogen present in your field. And a lot of times, the pathogen was it's going to be influenced by the field crop history. Hmm. And also the cultural practices and the cotton varieties you put in the field you planted should be susceptible to that pathogen or certain strain of this pathogen. And also you have to have a favorable environment and to promote the disease development. And for example, if you plant too early, if you have cold, rainy spring, you could get seedling diseases. And if you plant too densely, it may create a microclimate in the later in the season, promote some fungal diseases. I don't know why it's keep automatic playing my sled. Anyway, sorry about that. And lastly, and all of these factors have to be together at the same space or same also at the same time in order to really create a disease outbreak. And so today I'm going to cover all of these major cotton diseases briefly and just to point out the key point. And so we could have seedling diseases. We have, could have nematode issue. And here in the state, mostly root knot nematode. And the biggest category is soil-borne and the wilt diseases. And when you may have seen the ball rot and some leaf spot diseases in your field. So the seedling diseases, it's actually is a disease complex. It's several plant pathogen actually can cause the seedling diseases. The primary pathogen are PCM and rhizoctonia and civilapsis and Fusarium. So it's really hard to identify really, which specific of this pathogen is responsible for, in particular cases. And you really need to get the sample and then send it to us to be able to tell them apart. And um, so in terms of symptoms, so it, it can cause early seed rot before even the seed emerge from the ground. And after seed emerge from the ground, it can also cause the post-emergency emergence damping off. And a lot of times you will see root rot. And for rhizoctonia, as shown in this picture here, most in the US see this niching above the ground, and it's very typical. Again, it can be confused with a lot of other conditions like coat damage, planting issue, and the pre-emergency, herbicide injury, or even the insect damages. It's really, if you have a seedling disease issue, you really have to really get our, extension agent or Randy or specialist like me, a plant pathologist, and also get involved in order to really figure out, what pathogen really cause the problem. And in a general rule of thumb, you don't plant your seed until you have a 10-day average soil temperature at 8-inch depth. It's around 65 Fahrenheit, and there are some fungicide treatment available, and most of the commercial seed, I believe, come with some base fungicide treatment. And in some particular cases, if you have severe seedling diseases, and you can do even apply, additional fungicide treatment. And what I want to point out here is we recently have publication on seasonal diseases. So if you go online, go to search for AZ 1856, you will find this publication. Um, it's pretty a very concise summary of the in terms of symptom expression and also the treatment options. Uh, so the next disease is nematode. So root knot nematode in the state is the issue, especially in this field has been planted with cotton years after years. There's no rotations. Um, and So in addition to root knot nematode, we also have stubby nematode and lesion nematode and stunt nematode. Seems to me, especially in the early season, we see those stunt or stubby nematodes seems to be on the rise, and so nematode control basically again it's very important that you have to identify probably what kind of nematode species are present in your field, what's their especially what's their population density in your soil. And once you figure that out, if it is a nematode issue and the best option is to rotate to a long-host crop or using a resistant varieties. And so I want to use a chart here to illustrate what non-host means. So non-host means, the that particular plant species does not support the nematode reproduction in the soil. And for the resistant host, you have also almost zero reproduction. For susceptible hosts, you will have a lot of reproduction. For tolerant host or variety, you will have some reproduction in the soil. And if it's a really a severe issue with nematode problem, you can apply nematicide in furrow, and also probably with the seed treatment. And the message here, I want to point out, again, that to determine the nematode population in your field is very important. And also, it's not that easy to actually get a very accurate estimate of the nematode population in the soil. And here we have a publication from Mary Olson, and talk about what kind of step you need to take in order to get the accurate account of this nematode in your field. You cannot just walk down the field, just take a soil probe and then just randomly collect the soil, because the nematode a lot of times they will really concentrate on the root zone because that's where they feed on the on the roots. And so you got to collect soil as closely as the root zone. And also, normally this nematode will be more active during the warm, moist soil. And after you get the soil, you have to kind of pour them together, put in a bucket, and make sure you store them in your, like in a cool environment, because they are kind of very susceptible to the, extreme hot, So here's a little bit chart showing about some of the soil sample collect this season actually. It shows we have some in some field. I'm going to show you a couple of pictures, and if you see a patch of the field have stunted or have some issue early in the season, and you may have either stunt nematode or stubby nematode or even stem and bulb nematode in high population in your field. So this is some of the fields I scouted last season, and as you can see, we do have some field have this issue, poor stand, and again, this nematode, this field, when you have this limited problem, that also will exacerbate the seasoning disease issue, because this will make the cotton plant very um, vulnerable to the attack by some of those seasoning pathogens, and they always uh, go together. And now I'm going to switch to the soil-borne and wilt diseases. Uh, those diseases actually are most important to our cotton growers here in the state. And as Randy just mentioned about we have cotton root rot. That's probably the most important soil-borne diseases in our cotton production area. And we also have verticillium wilt, and you don't always see verticillium, year after year, but it show up in some years, and maybe when the conditions are favorable. And we also have fusarium wilt. This is a disease, something is emerging. You have FOV and FOV4, risk 4. Risk 4 is an emerging diseases uh, in the state. Um, so normally, those soil-borne diseases, in terms of infection, they can, infection can appear at any stage, and the time of infection really important. That actually will significantly impact the extent and on the yield losses, and some fusarium wilt and verticillium wilt, they have a very characteristic vascular discoloration. So I'm not going to spend time talking about toxin root. I think most of our growers are pretty familiar with this diseases, and it's Randy just mentioned about this diseases, and so I just want to point out we're going to have extension publication available soon, and so this publication summarizes, again, symptomology and also the management with the really first-hand, very new photos we're taking in the field. It's going to be available to you soon. So verticillium wilt is caused by soil-borne fungus called verticillium daniae. Normally, you will see the symptom expression during the flowering. It's intensifying during the ball field, and later in the season, you may see some stumping and a lot of defoliation. And the fungus actually survive in the soil with the microsclerotia, and then they infect the roots, and then they invade the vascular system and then get the vascular system clogged. That's why you see this, uh, uh, this burning and the leaf burn, and also this uh, interventional chlorosis. And we have seen this diseases last season, in 2020 season. It showed up in both several fields in Graham County and Pinal County, and fortunately showed up really late in the growing season. And for this verticillium wilt, unlike the cotton root rot, you have top guard tear, and to control the disease. For verticillium wilt, basically we don't have any fungicide available to control this disease. What I point out here, the picture here show you the characteristic of the vascular discoloration here, and to the right here, the picture. Okay, I borrowed this picture from Dr. Jason Woodward from Texas A&M University. He did a variety trial on verticillium wilt. As you can see, probably the best way to control verticillium wilt is use the resistant variety, and they make a huge differences. So again, I have summarized all this information, extension fact sheets. It's going to come out soon. Now I'm going to talk about Fusarium wilt. So Fusarium wilt has been a serious disease of cotton in many other states, but in Arizona, we don't really have it until recently. I started looking into this particular diseases, and I got a, a survey grant from Cotton Cooperative and the Arizona Cotton Research and Protection Council, and looking for the emerging risk for of this FOV in Arizona. And so a little bit background on Fusarium wilt, and normal, this particular fungus have different strains, and from risk 1 all the way to 8. And historically, all other risks except risk 4 need a nematode and to cause really a significant problem. But this risk 4 does not need the presence of nematode. And so risk 4 was first detected in California, San Joaquin Valley back in 2001, and recently detected in New Mexico and Texas. It's really a early seasoning diseases. Many Pima variety are susceptible, and most of the upland cotton was quite susceptible. And the diagnostic feature is this vascular staining, browning, or darkening in the center, as seen in the picture up right here. And the bottom picture is verticillium wilt, and also a healthy plant. As you can see, the difference between verticillium wilt and the Fusarium wilt. This is actually uh, uh, accurate way to try to tell them apart, you know. Um, so this just a few quick photos about the Fusarium wilt I see in the field. As you can see, they show up probably some, a couple row in your field, and you will see this yellowing, wilting plant. And so for the other Fusarium wilt, except risk 4 is the early seasoning diseases. Other risks will mostly the disease symptom will shoot up late in season, like in August or September. And so actually, we identified this field with Fusarium wilt, and in 2019, so 2026, I'll go back to revisit this field. What I found is it seems the more rows, more areas of this field have showed symptom this year. Apparently, I think the Fusarium wilt as FOV, the fungus population keep building up in this field. So I did some molecular work. It turns out this particular strain of FOV seems to be risk 3. It's not risk 4. So luckily, we don't have risk 4 so far in our cotton fields. So this information has been summarized in this extension publication, and it's available online, and you can find it. So the last one I want to briefly mention about is Autumnara leaf spot, and this is a fungal disease. Autumnara is really a opportunistic pathogen. It show up occasionally, in some years, and it has something to do with the stress this plant has also have also driven by the weather in the late growing season. If you have rainfall, in terms of stress, all this drought stress, pest damage, especially the physiological stress, nutrient deficiency, all contribute to the outbreak of Autumnara. And here you will see this leaf spot. This is the main symptom. I think it can be confused with cotton southwest rust, as shown in the photo here in the bottom left word, bottom left here, the panel here. And as you can see, the niche in terms of size, the spot caused by Autumnara and the cotton southwest, southwest rust, that's very different. And also for the southwest rust, you will see the orange spores, or in the later season, you will see black tinier spores. And so I want to mention briefly about a condition called the ball rot by Sclerotinia sclerotium. If you rotate your cotton field with a bean field or a vegetable field, the Sclerotinia ball rot or stem blight could show up in your field. And so this extension publication summarized, the symptomology, and also, in terms of management options. So one last thing I want to point out is this cotton leaf roll dwarf virus, and it's emerging diseases in Southeast, and now it's spreading west. And it was originally discovered in Alabama back in 2017, and now they can find it in Georgia and in Texas. And so it's an emerging disease. It's caused by single-stranded RNA virus, and it's transmitted by the cotton aphids. In terms of this symptomology, and at the beginning, you will see the drooping leaves as shown in this picture here. And when as the disease progresses, you will see more crinkling leaves. It's more like the cotton leaf crumble virus that was transmitted by whiteflies. And in terms of symptomology, it's kind of similar. And you will see a lot of crinkling and deformation of top growth, and stacking of internode. And this, in Alabama, they also say some of those cotton plants have a very elongation of main stem late in the growing season. So, okay, just a quick summary of.
Could you run a little bit, Alex? Okay. We are running way behind in the time. Thank you.
Okay, so yeah, so just a quick summary. So my message is, you have to know your disease. If you have any disease issue, you can get us involved, and we also have this publication to help you. And so okay, I think that's conclude my talk. And if you have any questions.